Hello and welcome to Securing the Remote Workforce and Essential Government Services. This is your moderator for today, Jessica Gulick, CEO of Cat's Eye, a growth company specializing in cybersecurity marketing and cyber games. As a fellow small business owner, I share with many of you a bit of fear, but more importantly, hope and determination that 2021 will be a growth year. The challenges of 2020 have permanently shifted the way we all do business. And while change is never easy, going digital has proven to expose many of our organizations to a growing level of cyber attacks. In today's session, we have a wonderful mix of public and private cybersecurity leaders who will be discussing how they have addressed these issues and these challenges. So here's the plan for today's session. First, you'll hear from two trusted Fairfax County leaders, followed by a panel of county CISOs, and then a panel of industry security leaders. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome. We're just starting. I'd like to introduce our first speaker this morning, Alex Ames, Executive Vice President of Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. Alex, welcome. Over to you.
Thank you, Jessica. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning, and I want to welcome all of our attendees, panelists, and speakers to this exciting event. First, I want to tell you a little bit about the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. Our principal mission is to help businesses start, expand, or relocate in Fairfax County. We provide a variety of services from helping companies recruit employees and place them within positions in their company. We provide real estate intelligence services. We work with the state on various incentive programs that companies may qualify for. And we work with companies across the office market from fields like government contracting, technology, and of course, cybersecurity. We at the FCEDA are part of a group called the Northern Virginia Economic Development Alliance, which is also a sponsor of today's event. That's a coalition of 10 localities across Northern Virginia. So it includes our colleagues from places like the city of Alexandria, Loudoun County, and Arlington County, and others that we collaborate with on our programs and initiatives. So it's exciting to be part of that, and it's something that we've been doing for about a year now. It actually ended up being timely in terms of support for businesses during the global pandemic, because businesses have really been impacted in a way that nobody could have anticipated, and collaborating together on resources has been tremendously helpful as we seek every possible way to assist. On today's topic, we can certainly relate. Our staff has been working remotely since March, so we're going on to our 9th month here, and we certainly want all of our computer and cyber infrastructure to be secure, as I'm sure many of you do. So that's why today's topic is so timely, that we have so many companies teleworking, passing and sharing so much sensitive information, especially in our market. We have more than 500 cybersecurity companies in Fairfax County and more than 8,900 technology firms. And in fact, in the region, we have 74,000 people working in cybersecurity and more than 9,000 computer science degrees among that workforce. I want to mention a couple things that I'll circle back to in my closing remarks, just about things that are upcoming for the FCEDA that I want you to know about or that exist today. We have a virtual career fair specifically focused on cybersecurity on January 28th, and that will be a marketplace between companies and prospective candidates to help companies recruit and help candidates find jobs. And we've done that a number of times this year, given the circumstances that we're all working under. Working virtually has actually expanded our reach a bit compared to the in-person career fairs that were done prior to the pandemic. We also host a talent website, workinnorthernvirginia.com. That's workinnorthernvirginia.com. That includes job postings in IT and cybersecurity from all across Northern Virginia. It's a very cool site and can be used by companies to help acquaint prospective candidates with what it's like to live and work here. So in closing, I want to thank all of the groups that are participating today. We have representatives from, of course, our county, Fairfax, Loudoun County, City of Alexandria, and our company representatives from Forescout Technologies, Amicus Cyber, Microsoft, and Easy Dynamics. I want to thank our team for putting on the event today. The incomparable Asher Kotz, who you'll hear from in a later panel, has been integral in putting this together. as well as Connie Royal and Katie Smith, Heather Gantz from DCI. With that, I will turn it back over to Jessica to introduce Supervisor Alcorn.
Thank you, Alex. Really looking forward to January 28th job fair. Let's keep the discussion going. Our next speaker, Supervisor Alcorn. Walter L. Alcorn is the Hunter Mill District Supervisor for Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Alcorn, all yours.
Oh, thank you very much, Jessica. And thank you, Alex, for having me on today's event. So I do very much appreciate the work that the Economic Development Authority does, and basically telling the world about why we're such a great place to do business and helping with diversify our economy and all those things. I represent, Jessica, as you said, the Hunter Mill District, and that includes Reston and a portion of Tysons, basically a chunk of the Dulles corridor, which, as I think everyone on this this call knows, is a major technology hub, not just for Fairfax County and the region, but for the country. So I have worked in various roles, technology-related roles, for a number of years, including I did 11 years at SAIC, and I then did a number of consulting arrangements in the consumer technology world for mostly manufacturers of consumer technologies, and then more recently have worked at the Consumer Technology Association on environmental issues. So I definitely have an appreciation for the work that you all do and how important the technology world is for our economy. So, and it is fortunate that the technology industry has made as many advances recently as they have. As the pandemic has been quite a wake-up call, and we have all benefited tremendously from technology that has been developed and applied across the economy, and this really allowed the pandemic to not completely devastate our economy, but has allowed at least major portions of our economy to continue going. Specific to Fairfax County, I do want to give some credit to the IT managers in the county. And by the way, I also do chair Fairfax County's Board of Supervisors IT committee. But we fortunately in Fairfax County upgraded our bandwidth, our internet connection services just in the last couple of years. And this was an investment. We changed our VPN platforms from Citrix to Zscaler. And we basically went from about 3,500 employees that were teleworking regularly pre-pandemic to more than 10,000 county employees that are continue to regularly telework. So, and this was all done without any major security issues reported, at least that anyone told me about. And that is something we're very proud of. So we continue as well to make sure that our systems are providing the services that our residents need as our residents continue to require services, many of which have been delivered electronically and now must be delivered electronically. So one thing I do want to just note that as we go forward, it is important to me that we learn from this and we build on the advances that have been made on the IT side in terms of more efficient ways to do things. And then once we get back to post-pandemic times, let's make sure that this is actually an additive thing and that we've built and improved the way we used to do business. So specifically for today, I know today's event's going to highlight several area public sector experts and chief information security officers and other leaders in the information security world. So I'm very proud to have this kind of leadership in our community. It really is the basis not only for today's economy, but for our future economy in Fairfax County and throughout the region. and look forward to hearing the presentations and the speakers today. So thank you again, Jessica, for letting me be here today.
Thank you, Supervisor Elkhorn. Really appreciate it. Next up is our discussion on challenges to delivering secure essential services. This esteemed panel we're about to hear from and learn from of county security leaders have not only had to face the going digital challenges that many of us continue to strive to adapt to, but they've increased, and in the additional increase of cyber threats, they've had to do so while being really on the front lines of ensuring that all these services that our government provides, the essential core things that as citizens we need, continue to operate throughout the pandemic. So I'm really excited about this next panel. Please do take a moment, if you will, to seek out the bar of Zoom at the chat and enter any questions you have. There is a Q&A section at the end of this panel. So we look forward to hearing some of the questions you might have for our panelists. At this time, I will turn it over to Mike Dent. Mike Dent is the Fairfax County CISO, and he's our moderator for today's panel. Welcome, Mike.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being with us today, and thank you, Jessica, for that introduction. I am Michael Dent, the CISO for Fairfax County Government. I've been the CISO here for 18 years. I have with me today two CISOs from local jurisdictions within the National Capital Region, Charlie Gore and Anthony Harvey. Charlie and Anthony, welcome and thank you. I'm going to let you two let the people know a little bit more about yourselves and what you guys do and what you're doing in your jurisdictions, but give yourself a little bit of an introduction. I'd appreciate it.
Good morning, Mike. Pleasure to be here, and it's always good to talk with you. I've known you for so long, 9 years, 10 years probably more likely. So my name's Charlie Gore. I'm the IT security manager for Loudoun County Government, neighbor of Fairfax County. I did want to mention that I'm a lifelong Fairfax County resident. My kids go to Fairfax County Public Schools, and as I mentioned, Mike, I worked for you for 9 years prior to coming over here to Loudoun County. Loudoun County is one of the fastest growing counties in the nation, about 30 miles outside of Washington, D.C., and a population of approximately 425,000 people. We're also a major hub for technology companies and host over 75 data centers, storing and transmitting approximately 70% of global internet traffic. It's great to be here. COVID has been a very interesting time, especially for CISOs, and I'm glad to be part of this conversation.
All right, Anthony.
I'll go ahead and jump in here. So I'm Anthony Harvey. I'm the CISO for the city of Alexandria. I've been with the city for about 2.5 years now. And before that, I was the director of technology and cybersecurity for George Mason's College of Education. So kind of like what Charlie said, it's definitely been an interesting time with the pandemic and everything else that's going on. And we have roughly 170,000 residents. So we're a little bit smaller than, say, Fairfax or Loudoun, but our challenges are still the same. We're still fighting the same battles, and definitely happy to be here and happy to share some of what I know as we're kind of going through these challenges of delivering these services.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. So everybody on this webinar understands, we all sit on a committee for the National Capital Region, the Council of Governments that is headquartered in DC, but we do meet regularly as CISOs once a month, or we actually communicate together. And I think when we look at what we're talking about, the challenges delivering essential services, a critical part of that is us communicating with each other. The issues and things or concerns that we see, trying to help each other convince our leadership. When we're looking at budget and things that we're doing. We don't necessarily all use the same solutions to what we do, but I'm interested to find out how do you guys approach getting budget and funding when you have a risk or something that you need to get done? What are the challenges you have as far as getting budgeting to get that done? Charlie?
Well, budgeting has definitely been challenging with COVID. Loudoun has had some freezes related to funding for fiscal year 21. So some of the projects that we had planned on for this year have been temporarily delayed. And most of our efforts have been focused on ensuring that our employees continue operating in a manner that is consistent with operations. So I think a lot of the emergency funding and budget has been allocated mostly towards continuity of operations. You know, so I started in Loudoun County in February, so I was on board for about a month right before the pandemic started. And immediately across the board, one of the first things that we had to identify a fix for was ensuring that all of our users could use remote access technology. Loudoun had the technology in place for remote access. However, it wasn't necessarily scoped to accommodate so many users. So we had to take a look at our remote access solutions, determine what was the best strategy to enhance scope for the users to be able to operate in a manner that would be consistent with their regular operations. So very early on, Loudoun made good choices in the technology that they had invested in, but we had to spend some time to rescope those efforts to ensure that we could operate in a way that was necessary. With that, lots of other things have come up. You know, different technologies have been requested to enhance operations, whether it's things like digital signature capabilities, e-signature capabilities for workflows, business workflows, new applications to minimize social contact between citizens and county employees, and just within county employees as well. So over the last 8 months or so that we've been dealing with this, most of our efforts have been focused on continuity of operations, improving operations when operating in a socially distanced manner. But back to the funding question, I mean, there are always challenges with funding and explaining the use cases related to, for security specifically, and how it relates to business operations. But we're hoping, as this vaccine is released to the public, we can get back on track with some of the priority security projects that we had in mind.
Cool. Anthony, I'm sure you had similar experiences trying to get budget and get technology in, but again, I'm not real sure about what Alexandria was in the process of doing when this thing hit us.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where we did have a few different projects in the work, and the fact that we had to switch to so much remote work almost overnight really kind of shifted some of the projects and some of the priorities that we had. So when we were thinking about, okay, if we're investing in the solution of that platform, yeah, it's great if everyone's still in the office and still working where they used to physically work. But if you have people all over the place now, if you have to have technology that's protecting people that are working from Starbucks or working from wherever, it really kind of shifted some of the things that we're going through. So we definitely had some challenges there, but again, kind of to Charlie's point, we really tried to link what we were doing and how we were protecting the new remote workforce. We stood up a whole bunch of different secure file sharing solutions, for example, consolidated existing cloud solutions, and we really had a push on essentially establishing what cloud applications are supported and what can be used, because it makes it so easy now for people to just be able to sign up and get their own Zoom account, get their own SoundCloud, Dropbox account, or whatever it may be, because everyone's just trying to find these tools to work remotely so they can get their jobs done. And so we really wanted to try to partner with some of our different departments to make sure that they know what the appropriate tools are and how we can kind of move forward. And so from a budgeting standpoint, we did also get some freezes, and we really had to be creative on how we were able to execute on some of these things, whether it was partnering with universities like Mason, going through different internship programs, rotations. We also, of course, got some grant funding and things of that nature. So we really had to just figure out different creative ways of kind of getting that funding in so we can continue creating and improving the security solutions that we have. Do both of you feel like you've never been more flexible in your lives, allowing things to happen that you never thought would happen?
I mean, here in Fairfax, again, Supervisor Alcorn, you know, mentioned it. You know, we went from 3,500 to over 10,000 in what seemed like the blink of an eye, in you know, in a couple months. And Supervisor Alcorn, if you're still out there, there were no security or cyber breaches in Fairfax County. I just want to make sure you know we were very diligent. And
Thank you.
our staffs worked really hard, and again, it was. I'll give you credit too, sir. It was a credit to leadership and believing in what the IT department was doing and what we had to do. So you all supported us greatly with budget and things that we needed to. But Anthony, you mentioned the word partners. You know, how did partners help you all? I mean, what unique things, do you know anything? What did they work with on your IT departments to make sure they could get smooth rollouts? You know, for us, every county employee remotely working has to have a laptop, a county issued, county image laptop. How have your partners worked with you?
Yeah, and so that's definitely been one of the challenges too, right? Especially from like a supply chain standpoint, if we're all ordering thousands of laptops at the same time to try to help support the remote workforce.
We got ours in before you.
Oh, I know. Yeah, so I mean, it really was a challenge, and also just the delivery of it too, right? I mean, if you think about how do you get people their ID cards, their login information, all the things that you would normally give to someone on their first day during the onboarding process, that entire process has now changed as well. So that's definitely been challenging. And then again, just kind of the remote support aspect of it. And we have a couple of different IT shops within the city, right? So our fire department, police department, things of that nature run their IT as well. So we partnered with them to ensure that they at least have the tools to kind of move through on their own, because we are a smaller city and an even smaller security team. So obviously we're not going to do it all. So we were definitely relying heavily on them. And then also some of the external partners, some of the vendors and companies that we've established relationships with, they've been able to come in for a reduced price to help stand up dashboards and help support some of the needs that we need within the city, and so we can kind of move forward there.
It's truly amazing how similar the challenges are across the board for state and local government, you know, regardless of the size I mean, the technology use, the relationship between the jurisdictions and the states. I mean, so, you know, I can't emphasize enough how helpful it's been being part of the local CISO subcommittee meeting and hearing the challenges that everyone is experiencing, whether it's, you know, from incident response to acquiring funding, use of CARES Act funding. So I think the strongest part, there's the private sector and the technology vendors that have been great partners, but also just the relationship between state and local jurisdictions has been extremely helpful in navigating this.
So I guess let's get back into some challenges. I mean, what have you seen from the user side of it? You know, we've given them this technology. We've done the best that we can from our back-end enterprise architectures that we've built to secure when they come in remotely. But what have you seen your users dealing with? Have they been doing anything out of the ordinary or new that you're finding out? I mean, here for us, I think our biggest crux has been the email, you know, with the phishing attacks and things, because these people out there know now that all of our employees are remote. So they're trying to hit them, I think, in the easiest spot, which would be email. How about you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think especially phishing related either to like election related matters or COVID related matters, we have seen an uptick just across the board. I mean, you can see that in multiple articles, but phishing and education is really that big thing too. It just ensuring that people know how to work remotely securely, right? I mean, the physical either loss or theft of laptops, just thinking about what your home workspace looks like if people end up sharing computers, all that type of stuff. So I mean, education has really been one of the biggest challenges I think that we have, just because there's so much more that people need to know about working remotely that they may not have known a year ago or 9 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think the unknowns are the scariest part. What are the users doing that we aren't aware of? But, in Loudoun's case, we went from hundreds of users that had remote access to thousands. So there were users that had never worked remotely before and didn't know what to expect, didn't know whether we didn't necessarily know whether they'd have access to the things that they would need to be able to do their jobs. Mm-hmm. So there was the learning curve, but then there's the challenge of, that Anthony mentioned about communication and spreading the message related to the threats that are out there. We've been fortunate. We've had lots of opportunity for regular communications out to our users. With the pandemic, this year has just been so strange. I mean, with the election, the threats associated with the election, the increasing ransomware threats across the board. There have been cloud service providers that have been impacted. The healthcare industry itself has been targeted, and local governments, they have these representatives on site that work with the healthcare industry on a regular basis. So the threat is very, very real to impacting an entire enterprise for all of county operations. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is having that insight into the users and how they're operating now, whether they're taking shortcuts, whether they're using shadow IT, like Anthony was mentioning earlier about, Dropbox and Box, and whether they're downloading data to their personal computers. And, we're losing track of that type of data. Those are unknowns. At this point, there's probably a segment of the user base that we don't fully understand how they're operating, but that's our job, is to try to figure it out and try to secure it.
Figure it out before something happens. But you guys have heard me say it enough, and you're probably tired of it. But here at Fairfax, we basically made the decision that if we were going to have users coming in remotely, they had to have a county device, it had to be county imaged, and using the new platform, it requires, all of their internet traffic, anything they do on that device comes back through our filters. And, having upgraded our internet service provider capabilities, we don't have any latency really for our users now. And it's been a good thing to see. And for me, I think my biggest fear still lays out there being an email with the phishing attempts and the things that are going on. Because we have worked and developed some data loss prevention capabilities. We're going through some trials right now, making sure that we could do things on, like you said, Charlie, downloading documents and things, or offloading them from their county device. We're trying to ensure that employees can't do that, and taking things, putting them on USB sticks and walking out the door with them. So we're working on things like that. I'm trying to think that, all of us, we're going to be, hopefully within a few months, maybe months at the most, we're going to all be trying to figure out what we're going to do going forward. Have you guys figured out, has your leadership told you what's the norm going to be for you all going forward when this pandemic ends? Is it going to be, are there going to be challenges with anything, new challenges that we're going to have to deal with?
Yeah, I think we're navigating all those challenges right now. We may not have learned all of them, but long term, there hasn't been a decision on how Loudoun County is going to operate. I think with the word of the vaccine coming along, we may move back to more frequently being in the office. Our security staff has been working remotely, only coming into the office when necessary. For example, in the event of an emergency or some maintenance of some sort, our whole IT department's been operating that way, and most of the other county employees as well. There absolutely are enhancements that we're looking at for that, not only are best practices, but things that can help better achieve compliance in certain areas, and we need to move forward on those things.
Do you find it's difficult to get, so we're always doing our risk assessments, and we're pinging our businesses to fix their risks that we do find. Is it harder for you to get to them and get those things taken care of now that everybody's remote, or is it easier? What is it?
I don't know if it's more difficult. The navigating it is reaching out to all the individuals, having access to all the individuals is just in a different manner. So we're kind of just learning how things have changed. You know, particular areas, you know, that we want to focus on more, you know, for example, if leadership may want deeper insight into how the employees are operating on a regular basis, having more insight into productivity, having more insight into how they're spending their day-to-day time. I could see enhancements occurring there. Loudoun has not moved in that direction at this point. You know, they're emphasizing the relationship between the manager and the employee, and having regular communications. Like we had daily leadership meetings essentially for the IT department throughout the majority of this pandemic. And I've had team meetings twice a week. I've had weekly one-on-ones with my staff, just to, you know, some of that was me just building the relationships with the team since I was fairly new coming on at Loudoun. But it's turned out to just be better for communications. So.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of add on to that as well, it's definitely difficult when you no longer have those water cooler type talks where you can go and just pass by someone in the office and think of an idea or bounce something off of someone. So it's definitely just a different way of working. And kind of going back to Mike, your point around the risk assessments, and where you used to be able to actually go through and see the business process, you'd walk over to whatever department it is and you kind of have those discussions. It's just now through Teams or through whatever virtual medium. So it's just kind of a shift on how we approach some of these processes. But I mean, the core result, I think, has still been the same. It's just a learning experience for everyone.
Awesome. All right, well, we're getting close, but I just want to leave with you two giving me, you know, what are your top challenges or top priorities that you need help with? Is there anything in particular besides money?
Money's always an important one, but I guess Loudoun has, you know, business hasn't stopped, right? We still need to complete the things that we've been planning on. We still need to do our reoccurring risk assessments. We still need to prioritize the areas that are not just for compliance, but for enhancing security and resiliency for public safety, for health department, health services that are, you know, going to be actively involved with vaccination distribution. You know, there's business for local governments. We're just busier, and nothing has stopped from a security or a privacy standpoint.
I've always liked to say, Charlie, we are where the rubber meets the road. I mean, you know, boots are on the ground here. It's never ending. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and to Charlie's point around especially the vaccine as it comes down the road and everything else that our health department's going to be doing, that our public safety folks are going to be doing, just kind of building out that resiliency, the infrastructure, and being able to support some of these new cloud apps and new initiatives. I mean, everyone can sign up for whatever cloud app they need, or they need to find some sort of solution that they can work with remotely, and just making sure that that communication is there, that communication with our department is there, so we're not putting anyone at the city at unnecessary risk. So
yeah, ensuring services stay out there for our citizens, especially now when we get towards this vaccination time. We're already starting to do planning and things so that we can make sure we have everything that our health department needs, our community services board needs. Those services that truly hit our citizens directly. We want to make sure that we have everything ready to go, if not soon to go, as soon as they give us the word that they need it. So those are really huge for us here in Fairfax, making sure we meet our citizens' needs. So I'm guessing, I'm trying to figure out where we are now time-wise. Are we close? What are we doing going forward? Are there questions and answers that we need to go to?
Hey there, Mike. It's Jessica. We do have a couple of questions if you want to try to answer them. We have, is a zero trust architecture a good infrastructure target to support work from home? Any thoughts on zero trust architectures from you guys?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Charlie.
So absolutely. So zero trust is, and the way cloud is integrating into on-prem environments, centralization of identity management, logical segmentation of resources, state and local governments. I mean, we're many federal governments. We basically have every type of compliance and security risk that an entire nation may have. So zero trust models are an ideal for local governments to be able to help segment to meet compliance purposes and minimize unauthorized access to resources in county enterprises. The big challenge with a lot of those models is funding, and the ability to integrate all the legacy apps and various resources that departments are acquiring that are unique to their mission.
Excellent. I really like this next question. Looking ahead, so once we recover from the pandemic and we move on with our lives, do you see the work from home as a permanent trend? And then if so, moving remotely, both through your operations and in terms of the capabilities that you provide to public customers, how do you see that changing? Are there benefits that you see? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the new normal is going to include some capacity of remote work, just because if the productivity output is still the same, if you're saving in the commute, if you're saving in the office space, if you're saving taxpayer money at the end of the day, it makes sense, right? And we put these new initiatives in place. We've talked about like the digital signatures and things like that, where before you may have papers getting lost when it shuffles from department to department, to now you have an online workflow that improves efficiency. I definitely think that some of the initiatives that we made and some of the improvements that we made are going to stick for the foreseeable future. So,
yeah, I agree with you, Anthony. I mean, I haven't seen my staff in almost 8 months now, but I can tell you the amount of work that we have had to do changing platforms. My staff has been more productive being at home. They have less stress of, like you were saying, Anthony, the travel time to and from work, not to mention we're helping the environment because of that. But it does look that way for a lot of us here in Fairfax, and especially in the IT department, that, mostly everything we can do can be done remotely. And why not do it that way if we see better efficiencies and we see actually more productivity out of our employees doing it this way? We probably will stay in some form of this going forward.
And I'll just echo both what Anthony and Mike said. I mean, I think in some ways, this pandemic's helped us rethink how we're going to approach many things, and not just from the business operations standpoint, but from the cybersecurity standpoint and IT in general. Some of there have actually been progress on things that I think, like you mentioned, e-signatures and rethinking the printing out the piece of paper, signing it and scanning it in and emailing it. I mean, the technologies are available to help us with some of these things, and maybe there might have been legal reasons why some of those things would have been delayed in use. But I mean, I think
we're always told we're the no people. But all three of us have pushed that. We've pushed that hard, that new technology and it's not new. It's been there for a while, but firewall requests, exception to policy requests, anything that required our signature. I'm like, you and I've had that conversation directly, Charlie. Why do we still do this on paper? So having that new technology, I mean, it's been phenomenal getting things done, and you get them done so much faster because you're not waiting for the paper route.
I agree completely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, guys. Great discussion on the state and local perspective. I particularly liked hearing about the success of collaboration and partnering to address these new challenges. Really heartfelt thank you for your service during this pandemic and going forward. And thank you for today's panel, Mike, Charles, and Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Very much.
Thanks
for those questions that
this on. Sorry.
No, not at all. Appreciate it, guys. For those questions from the audience not that were not yet answered, no worries. Our team will follow up with you directly. So now let's have a little bit of fun. Let's take a moment, and we have a couple of poll questions we want to go ahead and post up there. This is your opportunity to engage. So please take a few seconds, read these questions with me, answer, and we'll take a look at the results. So question number 1, in regards to 2021 budgets and expenditures, where do you and your organization see your biggest investments coming? Is it facilities, equipment, hiring, contracting, software and subscriptions, or perhaps you don't have any major investments planned for 2021 because you just want to continue your core costs for now, or there's another. So which one for you guys? What are you planning for your budgets and expenditures? And then on the second question, in 2021, do you plan to hire additional employees in Northern Virginia? Yes, no, not sure at this time? What do you think? Please take a minute, answer these questions, and let's look at the results. Okay, we'll give it another 15 seconds. Please do engage. This is your opportunity. We'd love to hear from you. The Q&A section of the panels and doing these polls is your opportunity to engage with us and give us a little bit of insights of what you're thinking and how you guys are feeling about your growth plans for next year. All right, so let's see these results. So it looks like quite a few of you are looking at hiring and making some investments next year. Software and subscriptions, absolutely. I know as a small business owner, that seems to be where I'm putting a lot of my money. Not surprised that facilities is low. We hear a lot about the remote working. Let's see, anything else? I wonder on the other piece, I'm curious on that one. But let's see, in terms of your hiring needs for Northern Virginia, looks like quite a few of you are not sure at this time. That's to be expected. But there's still a few of you that are planning. I'd like to take a moment and do a plug. Remember that January 28th, mark your calendar, save that date. There is going to be a career fair, so that's an excellent opportunity for you to seek out some new candidates for next year. Okay, so let's thank you all. I really appreciate those who took a moment to participate in that poll. Let's continue with today's discussion. The next session, the risks and solutions for working remotely, is a panel of industry security leaders who will share with us how they've adapted their business and products to help organizations be more resilient in the face of change and the increase of attacks. As a reminder, please do take a moment to engage with us and type your questions into the chat window. There will be a short Q&A session, if you will, at the end of this panel. At this time, I will turn it over to Asher Kutz, Business Investment Manager and Business Investment Manager of Cybersecurity in Israel, Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. Welcome, Asher. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Jessica. Good morning for everyone. My name is Asher Kutz. I'm working with the EDA for about 11 years, covering the cybersecurity ecosystem. We have about 500 plus cyber-related companies in Fairfax County, obviously many more in Northern Virginia. I also running a program in Israel. We have an office there since 2005. So we keep bringing companies to Northern Virginia. Before that, I was about 12, 13 years in Silicon Valley, mostly focused on cybersecurity and business application. So I will introduce our distinct speakers, our panel. We have Ellen Sondra, VP of Global System Engineering, Forescout Technology, Viral Trivedi, Chief Business Officer, MPEC Cyber, By the way, Forescout based in Tizen, very nice office. Ampex based in Chantilly. Dean Icarvelli, Director of Modern Work and Security in Microsoft. You know, Microsoft has a big presence in Weston, and in late May, made a huge announcement that really got great energy to Northern Virginia. 1,500 jobs in the next 3 years, $64 million investment, 400,000 square feet office. For us, it's a great vote of confidence for Northern Virginia, so thank you, Microsoft. Last and not less important, Popak Afshar, CEO of Easy Dynamics, based in Tyson Corner. So let me go first, general question for Viral and Dean. We'll start with both of you. What are the challenges and needs you see from your customer? We heard our CISO partners. What do you guys see the needs and challenges that in 2020, and plus if you guys adjusted your product offering based on that? Viral, can you go please? You're mute.
Thank you, Asher. Thank you for inviting us for this webinar and this panel. To answer your question.
Hey, 1 second, Viral, please introduce yourself a little bit about Ampex. I forgot. Please do the introduction.
No problem, no problem. Gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, this is Viral Trivedi from Ampex Cyber, and I am the Chief Business Officer. I handle solutioning and sales for Ampex Cyber. We are an end-to-end cybersecurity consulting and advisory organization. We have helped 40% of our business comes from government and 60% comes from the enterprise. We are helping different sizes of organizations, agencies within government, local government, to be more cyber resilient. So having said that, one of the questions that, that Asher asked is about what are the different challenges? So one of the biggest thing is that 90% of the incidents or cyber incidents happen because of human actions. Today, after COVID, there are around 50 spam messages that are coming to everyone on an average, more than 50. Less than 1% of those users do not report those phishing messages. Less than 1% of users don't make use of the right tools to secure their data. Ransomware incidents have grown up by 200%. 35% of employees click on targeted phishing campaigns, and 55% of employees use their personal devices for work. So as you see that majority of these vulnerabilities that are being faced by the businesses as they move remote are purely employee focused. We'll discuss shortly later on how we can address those challenges, but this is what I've been seeing in the last 1 year from a statistics point of view.
Thank you, Viral. Dean, please introduce yourself and what do you think about that question?
Hi, I'm Dean Iacovelli from Microsoft. Greetings from Seattle this morning, where it's still dark. So yeah, I'm the director for Secure Enterprise for Microsoft State and Local Government. So I've been working with state and local customers for the last 15 years or so, and exclusively. And I manage a team of cybersecurity technical specialists that work with our state and local customers. And believe me, that's what they were doing in March when all the state and local government employees went home. One of the first calls they made was to my team to think through how are we going to remote enable all the applications that people are used to using, including things like Teams. And interestingly, so before we even get to Teams usage, one of the things that was brewing even before COVID started was that hackers were beginning to figure out that state and local were really juicy targets for hacking, particularly as Viral was pointing out, from a phishing attack vector perspective. And so what we saw in 2019 from our data was that 2/3 of attacks were actually targeted in one form or another at state and local government, and that's before COVID. And then when COVID hit, they didn't really change the tools they were using. They just changed the social engineering part of it, the messaging. And we saw a 350% from January to February increase in phishing attacks, not just in state and local government, just globally, from January to May. And it was just, they're just preying on a different set of fears that people have. It's not very technical in a lot of respects. It's just to get you to click on something bad. So, that was already brewing. And certainly when employees started to go home in March, what we started to see was a 500% increase in Teams usage, 200% increase in Teams mobile usage starting in March. So that was pretty significant. And what that also drove, if you consider, I'm generalizing a little bit, but I would say that there are still a lot of state and local governments out there that are 70% desktop based as opposed to laptops. And so when they went home, that was a complicated situation because do they go home with a desktop? In a lot of cases, that was not happening. And so you had some new risk scenarios. So for example, moving from largely perimeter-based security, if your users are not mobile, it works great. But once they go home and they're on potentially unmanaged machines in a hybrid world, which is probably what I'm preempting the last question. But really, you're dealing with new risk scenarios. Like now, if they don't go home with hardware, do I have to manage grandma's swampy computer? You remember grandma, right? She's the one who clicks on everything that says free in it. That's my mom as well. And so that's a kind of a new risk scenario for a lot of state and local governments, and terrifying. And so, my folks are working 6-7 days a week to try to give the best recommendations we could, many of which, unfortunately, we found were just not workable in the compressed timeline that people had to get stuff turned on for their users. Thankfully, what we saw afterwards was a second wave of re-engagement with my team to say, okay, well, we got stuff out the door. We did what we had to do. Now we're going to circle back and see did we get the security right? Or is there more things we could do now that we have a little bit of a breather? And so that's good. It's a good sort of second wave of engagement for my team on this sort of difficult subject.
Very fascinating. Ellen, good morning again. Please introduce yourself, what Forescout is doing, and then you can address what have you guys see with your customer, what kind of new product feature you guys brought to the market now with this new reality. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Asher. Good morning. My name is Ellen Sunder. I run the global systems engineering team for Forescout. And Forescout provides visibility, segmentation, and enforces compliance against all connected devices. So, we get to see the gamut, all these different things that are connecting into the network. And certainly when we saw the shift to work from home, we like to see that there's some policies around using standard government furnished devices. But in actuality, we saw a bit of desperation, to use that word, that, it was situations where people didn't have laptops, they couldn't procure laptops. And so it was, look, we need to get our work done. And we're going to allow them to allow different devices in, especially right off the get-go. So, Forescout was really focused. We provide visibility into everything that connects to the network, even outside of your perimeter. So as more and more variety of devices were connecting in through VPNs, we realized, our customers need to just, it's not you connect to your VPN and you have access to everything internally. It was really important to get some visibility into what are those devices that are connecting. Are they government furnished? Is it your own device? In some cases, we actually did see organizations allow people to bring their desktops home because there was that level of desperation. Some funny stories of some of our customers having their employees just load up their trunk and bring it all home and just replace it. The problem is that once it's disconnected from the network, it then was no longer had all of the connectivity and the compliance that it had when it was inside the perimeter. So Forescout really focused on those devices connecting in, what is their compliance level before we give them access to the crown jewels and important resources internally, making sure that we could check their compliance, segment them, give them access to just those parts. So back to the zero trust comment, that was really important for Forescout to be able to only give access to those devices, especially risky devices, to certain parts of the network. So we really focused on that remote access back into the workplace.
Well, fascinating. This is going to be more relevant in 21. So Popak, a question for you after you introduce yourself and your company. So you have a background, your company is building network and working with some federal agency, but also looking at other segments. So that's the question. How do you build a resilient network that can deal with all the threat we just talked? Please introduce yourself. Up, you're mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Asher, very much. I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to be here among my fellow panelists. I'm Pupak Afshar, CEO and co-founder of Easy Dynamics, a systems integrator focused on cybersecurity, specifically digital identity, cloud, and information sharing. We work mostly with the federal government and commercial markets to help them solve their cybersecurity challenges. As far as what product development, is that the question you were asking me?
No, how you see in terms of building network that are secure? Now we have remote, we have back to the office. How you guys see it?
So the way we look at it is fortunately our industry was not as affected. Our federal government was not as affected as much because they were already prepared for the remote work. Some of our clients who were more in-person organized had to shift to a fully remote operation. They had the systems in place to achieve it. However, it was more of a cultural shift. Some agencies were faster to adopt this new work environment, and we worked with our talents to ensure communication more frequent and clear in regards to hours of operation, availability of resource, and task management. The new normal requires more coordination to ensure projects were moving in the intended direction. Our focus during this has been on secure digital identity. We've worked to make sure that the platforms are secure and require the appropriate level of strong credentials. We've emphasized and provided guidelines for better information management so the teams can organize information in predictable ways to ensure that other team members can find the appropriate files or that they're looking for. This has really been a positive outcome as it's forced us to provide better training and communications because we don't have the luxury to have our coworkers being in the next cube over so you can pop over and ask them, hey, where did you store the latest file?
Yes, I think it's an excellent topic. So I'm going to do a second question. We have talked about it, but it's really, really bothered me. It's the elephant in the room, I'll call it, the ransomware problem. I mean, I read it just in 2020, more than 170 local government and public school system in the US alone got hit, not to mention private companies. So how you guys envision a stronger aid to repel ransomware, and B, what really can be done? Either companies, or of course we have the FBI and all that, but what do you guys, how to deal with that really problem? And we have in the DMV area, we have Fairfax County Public School, we have Baltimore, I think last year. I mean, this is a really issue. Maybe Viral, you want to address that first?
Absolutely, thank you, Asher. Well, just yesterday, one of the Delaware County, Pennsylvania had a ransomware attack where they chose to pay a ransom of $500,000. And I always wonder when I'm talking to clients, there's constantly a talk about, oh, we don't have the budget. But when I hear or news like these where they have the money to pay for the ransom, they could have spent that money to do the right thing. And those right things are to have a good inventory of their environment, to have a good assessment of their security posture, having a good understanding of how their backups are handled. This is a very common problem. Everybody and attackers are not worried about the current crisis. They're even upping their ante and they're going after local governments and school systems, and they know that these are easy targets. So the basic few steps is to understand your environment. What do you have, what you don't have from hardware and software point of view, having a good understanding of your risk posture. What are your policies, procedures? How do you align yourself to certain cybersecurity frameworks? Having that good understanding is a good start, I would suggest at this point. And then at the same time, your backups, like what is the real purpose behind, if you kill the purpose of a ransomware attacker of holding your data for a ransom because you have a proper backup, there are many cloud services, AWS, Azure, they do provide a good backup related solutions, which will help organizations that are in a similar situation in case they're attacked by a ransomware. So, I mean, Dean, what do you think? Have you seen organizations taking advantage of these services? Dean? Okay.
Sorry, the keyboard shortcut for unmute was not working. So yes, we absolutely see tons of ransomware and a lot. We actually had boots on the ground probably on many of the ones you saw in the news after the fact, trying to help recover. You know, there are answers for ransomware, partial answers at, you know, all different levels of the kill chain. And, you know, defense in depth and layers are important. But if I had a gun with 2 bullets, I would want those bullets to be number one. And the second one is way more important, frankly. So these bullets aren't even the same size. And my analogy is breaking down. But the reality is that, you know, up front, you want sort of heuristics based detection tools that can basically detonate the incoming payload, see what it does, and see if it's malicious. That's fine. You're never going to get to 100% with any of those types of tools because arms race. To me, the long-term solution to ransomware, which is really the theft of low-level credentials to facilitate the theft of higher-level credentials once I'm on the network in a working user account, is really hardening identity and reducing to eliminating our reliance on passwords. I don't want this to sound cavalier, but if I have MFA in place, I care a lot less about whether you steal my username and password, because you're never going to get the other piece unless you hold me up at an ATM or something. And so to me, that's the longer term solution. It's a bit more work, but that's how you sort of, we need to get off of reliance on passwords anyway. We are long overdue on that front. So there's other stuff like conditional access, endpoint protection, DLP, and all that kind of stuff that can factor into this. But if I had 2 things to do, identity is job 1, and some sort of heuristics-based ability to detect as the attacks come in would also be useful.
Very good idea. So the last question before we open for other questions from the attendees to Popok and Ellen, what do you think the role of AI to deal with those growing attack that, you know, it's also come to asset management? I mean, it's hard to manage all the assets, but maybe AI can be the silver bullet here. Popok, Ellen, anyone wants to take that?
I'll start. I think AI can play a role in it. There's so much to be discovered when it comes to AI, but the human element of it's never going to get taken away. So we as humans, we need to be prepared. We need to be trained. We need to be aware of the risks and what causes, you know, these big major breakdowns in security. So I agree with what Viral and Dean had said about making sure that we're secure, making sure you have privacy, making sure that, you know, you have multi-factor. There's so many different angles of this that need to be working in unison with AI as well at some point.
Ellen?
Yeah, I'll agree with the rest of the panel. I think there's no silver bullet. I think we all agree to that. You know, Viral said in the very beginning, asset management piece. If you look at a lot of these major ransomware attacks, it really starts with those few devices that weren't patched, that maybe you didn't know about, that were hidden in a server closet somewhere, that were left unpatched. And so, not to simplify it, but solving that problem is kind of the first step. AI is going to help us with understanding the attack and sort of what happens afterwards and identification. But I think we still need to take some very simplistic steps towards proper hygiene, knowing what's connected, making sure that you're patching, and taking those first steps to really make a difference here on some of these ransomware attacks.
Yes. Jessica, maybe you have some question from the attendees for the panel.
Asher, I would like to add one more thing. The biggest problem, as we addressed in the beginning, that 90% of these attacks are happening due to human actions. The problem here is that the attackers are using human cognitive biases to target employees. They are looking at hyperbolic discounting, where here's a free coupon, click on this, or there's an authoritative bias where, hey, I'm the CEO, can you go buy $1,500 gift cards? Or a halo effect, where a customer, oh, we are from Apple, click on this link. I mean, there are so many of these cognitive biases that are they're coming into action for these attackers to target these employees. So in the end, I think it's very important for employee awareness and accountability to be taken seriously by organizations, where you can, in real time, make these employees aware. Either it's COVID times, pre-COVID times, post-COVID times. The three important things are prevention, as Dean said, detection and response, and absolutely employee awareness and accountability. If you combine these three, you can protect yourself. At least you'll be more prepared, and your reduction in malware infection or phishing will definitely go down.
Yeah, I agree. One more question before we pick up other question from the audience. Have you guys see a changing in your pricing model to accommodate customers, especially public sector client?
I'll go if you don't mind. We have been offering a lot of customers like a kind of a 15-month service model, where we give the first 3 months free and then bill them for 1 year. So we have changed. There are a lot of customers who are struggling due to COVID, due to they losing their customers. So we are working with many customers to adjust our pricing and helping them out in a way so that they can get themselves protected. At the same time, the pricing is fitting them for a longer period of time. That's just one example.
Yeah. Anyone else about the pricing model change in 2020?
We've always had a pricing model that was effective for both on-site, off-site work, or we always try to fit the needs of our customers.
Okay, by the way, maybe I can bring back Mike Dent. Mike, do you want to come back if you have a question from the vendors from your perspective?
Actually, Asher, there is a question from our audience regarding identity. Regarding identity and fine-grained access control as a key capability for improving cybersecurity, do companies actually know where their sensitive data is, and what access policies should be applied?
I'll jump in. I see this quite frequently, and I would say that, there's a mix of this, but certainly there are pockets of information that are sometimes forgotten about. We've added so many devices, especially around, we call it the enterprise of things. It's not just IoT, but it's everything. There's data on these types of devices. So I think we immediately go to big databases and large sources and data lakes of where that information is, but we do forget that there's sometimes sensitive information in other devices across our network. So I would say that there are times where we're not aware of where that data is being stored across the network. Which kind of goes back to that fundamental first step of just that asset management, knowing what's connected to your network, knowing where your data is, and then controlling access. The question on zero trust in the first segment is valuable, because we're seeing the perimeter change so much during this COVID time, and that it's extending out to the home, that we need to be flexible for that network access control, but also kind of locking down where the important sensitive data is.
Okay, Jessica, any other question?
Well, I actually have a question. Given the poll questions that we did earlier, quite a few people said they were going to be making investments in software and subscriptions going on for next year. Are there, I guess for each one of you, as we start to close this out, what are the key things, one or two things, that each one of your organization can do to help our audience? What are the one or two challenges that you help with directly?
This is Dean from Microsoft.
Can you go first?
Oh, yeah, just very quickly. I already talked about it, or it's already been discussed, sorry. zero trust strategy. Zero trust is not an overnight solution, and it can generate a lot of analysis paralysis because it feels like a Hoover Dam type project. But if there's anything that my organization do to help, not just from a security workloads perspective and securing identity and moving that out to devices and stuff, it's that I think we now are starting to unpack the big project into what we always need to make IT successful, which is some quick, shorter term wins. Nobody wants the 18-month to 3-year outcome type project anymore. And so being able to roll out MFA effectively to get a shorter term win, and then plugging in the next components of zero trust is one area where my team is having a lot of conversations. And the other piece, which is maybe especially relevant to state and local, is automation of your security processes. If you're not looking at automating your stuff, you're never going to have the bodies to do it, the bodies that you want for this very challenging asymmetrical problem, which means it's not a fair fight, never will be. So you can't throw bodies at this problem. We need to introduce automation to automate the boring, to automate the essential going forward. And there's too many technologies to list here on how you do that, but that needs to be part of everybody's security strategy going forward. How do I automate more of my stuff?
Okay, I think we need to wrap up. It's 1 minute before, so I want to really thank all the wonderful panel, Ellen, Popak, Dean, Viral, great. I think you guys gave a nice insight, also exposure for your companies. Thank you for doing business in Fairfax County, even from far away Seattle and far away New York, but we value very much what your companies are doing here to not just enhance the technology and the innovation, but also invest in the companies and creating jobs and invest in the county. So thank you very much. And Jessica, please take it from there.
Very insightful discussion. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the advice and the perspectives that each one of you shared. Thank you, Asher, Alan, Viral, Dean, and Popak. Also, a big thank you to all of our speakers today, the organizers, and the audience. Our closing remarks will be from Alex Ames, Executive Vice President of Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. Alex, over to you to close this out.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, panelists. It was a wonderful program today. I certainly learned a lot about the threats that are out there and a number of things that organizations, especially state and local governments, can do to be prepared. I think that this year has taught us all a lot, and we will be stronger in the future as a result. A couple of other thank yous. I want to thank Jessica Gulick, CEO and founder of Cat's Eye, for moderating the event and the excellent facilitation and questions for the panelists and leading the discussion today. I want to thank Fairfax County Supervisor Walter Alcorn for his opening comments and remarks about the event and about what we're doing as a county to prevent these kinds of threats and grow our economy. I promised at the beginning that I would tell you more about our virtual career fair on January 28th to connect cyber companies and job seekers. The career fair will have recruiters from 20 companies with more than 5,000 job openings. And we really have every type of company represented, from the small 8A women-owned to large Fortune 500s like Leidos and Microsoft, and many more. And I want to mention that Easy Dynamics is also a participant on the company side. So thank you, Popak, for your participation on the employer side of the event. People can register for the job fair at www.workinnorthernvirginia.com. And for more information about the FCEDA and services and resources we offer, please visit www.fairfaxcountyeda.org. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.